On a dazzling Sunday night in Los Angeles, under the bright lights and roaring cheers of basketball fans from around the world, Prince Harry and Meghan Sussex stepped into the electric atmosphere of the 75th NBA All-Star Game and effortlessly commanded attention, not because they demanded it, but because their presence radiated confidence, warmth, and authenticity. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex didn't just attend the event, they owned the moment in a way only they can. And while the media machine immediately went into overdrive trying to manufacture distance, tension, and imaginary drama, what unfolded courtside was something far simpler and far more powerful. Two globally admired figures enjoying a night out, on their terms, surrounded by friends and culture. Held at the state-of-the-art Intuit Dome in Inglewood, the milestone 75th edition of the NBA's star-studded celebration brought together athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, and cultural leaders. It was the perfect backdrop for Harry and Meghan, a couple who have consistently shown that they are not confined by outdated expectations, but are fully immersed in the modern global conversation. From the moment they arrived, cameras flashed, social media buzzed. But what stood out most wasn't spectacle, it was ease. Meghan, poised and luminous, appeared completely at home. Harry, relaxed and animated, laughed freely throughout the game. They were photographed sharing moments with award-winning icon Queen Latifah and her partner Eboni Nichols, exchanging smiles and conversation that felt genuine rather than staged. These weren't stiff, orchestrated photo ops. They were natural interactions between people who respect one another's journeys and contributions. And yet, almost immediately, certain corners of the media couldn't resist spinning a different narrative. Because also in attendance that night were former President Barack Obama, former First Lady Michelle Obama, and their daughter Sasha Obama. Instead of celebrating the fact that influential leaders and cultural figures were sharing the same space, headlines zeroed in on one question. Why weren't they sitting together? Why weren't they seen chatting? Was there distance? Was there tension? Let's pause here. The arena was massive. Premium seating areas were spread out across the court. The NBA All-Star Game is not a small dinner party, it's a high-energy, high-security sporting spectacle with thousands of attendees and countless VIP sections. The assumption that two high-profile couples must publicly greet one another in full camera view, or else something must be wrong, says far more about media obsession than it does about any real-world dynamics. Prince Harry met Barack Obama at the White House in 2015. Their exchange was warm, respectful, and rooted in shared values, particularly around service members and veterans. In 2016, Michelle Obama joined Harry at the Invictus Games in Orlando, supporting wounded and recovering service personnel in a display of unity that transcended politics and nationality. The images from that event weren't about optics, they were about shared purpose. In 2017, Harry interviewed Barack Obama for BBC Radio 4. The conversation was relaxed and candid, with the two joking comfortably. It wasn't stiff, it wasn't forced. It was two leaders speaking about responsibility, youth engagement, and global change. And Meghan? She crossed paths with Michelle Obama during the London stop of the Becoming Tour in 2018, where mutual admiration was evident. Michelle has publicly spoken about advising Meghan with compassion and understanding, not as a political figure, but as a woman who understands scrutiny at the highest level. So, to suggest that one evening of not being photographed together at a basketball game somehow erases years of respectful interaction is not journalism, it's narrative engineering. What the cameras did capture, however, was Harry and Meghan fully engaged with the culture around them. Meghan was seen greeting Kelly Rowland warmly. Harry shared laughs with Anthony Anderson. They mingled with Teyana Taylor and Monét artists who represent the vibrancy of modern American entertainment. For years, critics attempted to box the Sussexes into rigid royal expectations, insisting that they remain confined to certain circles, certain traditions, certain codes. Yet here they were, effortlessly blending into a celebration of sport, music, film, and community. Not performing royalty, not seeking validation, simply living. Because when Harry and Meghan step into mainstream cultural spaces, whether it's a charity gala, a Netflix premiere, or the NBA All-Star Game, they do so as independent figures. They are no longer operating under palace press offices or outdated hierarchies. They choose their appearances. They choose their partnerships. They choose their conversations. The media, however, often struggles with that autonomy. The narrative quickly shifted from celebration to speculation. Articles asked whether the seating arrangement signalled cooling ties. Others suggested distance. But none addressed the most obvious explanation. Sometimes people attend the same event without staging a public reunion. The truth is far less dramatic and far more mature. High-profile individuals understand how to move in public spaces without turning every interaction into a headline. It's entirely possible, even likely, that greetings occurred privately, away from flashing cameras. It's equally possible that each couple simply enjoyed the game with their respective companions. Neither scenario requires scandal. What stood out most throughout the evening was Harry's visible ease. He leaned forward during key plays. He laughed. He appeared genuinely entertained. Meghan, seated beside him, mirrored that energy, engaged, animated, relaxed. This is a couple who, after years of intense scrutiny, appear comfortable in their own rhythm. And that comfort is hard-earned. Since stepping back from official royal duties in 2020, they have faced relentless coverage, often critical, frequently distorted. Yet moments like this remind audiences that beyond the headlines are two individuals building a life centered on family, philanthropy, and chosen community. Their attendance at the 75th NBA All-Star Game wasn't political. It wasn't strategic. It was cultural. The NBA represents more than sport. It represents global influence, social advocacy, and artistic crossover. For Harry and Meghan, both vocal about equality, mental health, and youth empowerment, being present in such spaces aligns naturally with their broader worldview. Meanwhile, the focus on who they didn't sit next to reveals an uncomfortable truth about modern media consumption. Absence is often treated as evidence. If they had been photographed chatting with the Obamas, headlines would have framed it as a power alliance. Because they weren't, it became a snub. The outcome is predetermined either way, drama must be found. But here's what couldn't be denied. The Sussexes looked happy. Not performatively happy, not rigidly posed, but genuinely at ease. Harry's laughter with Anthony Anderson felt spontaneous. Meghan's conversation with Queen Latifah appeared warm and animated. These weren't transactional exchanges. They reflected comfort within a diverse circle of creatives and leaders. It's worth noting that Harry's long-standing rapport with Barack Obama remains documented and undeniable. The BBC Radio 4 interview in 2017 showed two men teasing each other about protocol, laughing over timing cues, and discussing serious issues with mutual respect. That kind of ease isn't manufactured overnight, and it doesn't evaporate because of seating charts. Similarly, Meghan's interaction with Michelle Obama during the Becoming tour highlighted shared experiences navigating public scrutiny. Michelle has often spoken about mentorship and grace. Meghan has frequently cited female leadership and empowerment as central themes in her work. Their connection, whether publicly displayed at every event or not, stands on substance rather than optics. The media's insistence on visible proximity as proof of friendship simplifies complex adult relationships into playground dynamics. Real-world relationships don't require public validation. What also deserves recognition is how Harry and Meghan continue to move with dignity in environments where they know cameras are waiting to dissect every glance. They didn't avoid attention, but they didn't chase it either. They smiled for photos when approached. They engaged naturally. They enjoyed the night. And perhaps that's what unsettles critics most. The Sussexes no longer appear reactive. They are not scrambling to correct every rumour. They are not staging counter-narratives in real time. They attend events, support causes, and allow speculation to exhaust itself. In a media ecosystem addicted to outrage cycles, that calm is disruptive. The NBA All-Star Game itself marked a historic milestone, 75 years of basketball excellence, cultural crossover and global influence. To see Harry and Meghan comfortably integrated into that celebration speaks to their evolving identity. Not confined to royal ceremony, but active participants in contemporary global culture. Meanwhile, coverage that attempted to centre the night on who didn't greet whom missed the larger picture entirely. The bigger story was visibility. Harry, once constrained by rigid palace protocols, now laughing courtside in Los Angeles. Meghan, once targeted by hostile tabloid narratives, now confidently engaging with award-winning artists and industry leaders. That's not a snub story. That's a resilient story. And perhaps the most telling detail of the evening wasn't who they sat near, but how they carried themselves. Relaxed, engaged, unbothered. The cameras may have been scanning for tension, but what they captured instead was normalcy. In a world eager to project feuds and fractures, sometimes the most radical act is simply enjoying the game. As the final buzzer echoed through the Intuit Dome and the 75th NBA All-Star Game wrapped up in spectacular fashion, Harry and Meghan left as they arrived together, composed and seemingly untouched by the narratives swirling online. No dramatic confrontations, no icy stares, just another evening in a life they are shaping on their own terms. And that, ultimately, is the real headline.